The alarm bells rang through the great hall of the Altarian Command Center as Admiral Lane studied the tactical display with growing concern. Red dots marked enemy positions while blue dots showed friendly forces across the vast emptiness of space. This was how war had been fought for thousands of years across the galaxy, with honor, with rules, with dignity. The hegemony fleet had arrived exactly on schedule, their massive ships gleaming silver against the black of space. Each vessel was a work of art, decorated with ceremonial markings that told the story of their battles and victories. Their weapons were charged but not yet activated. This was proper protocol. War was a dance, not a massacre. "Sir, the hegemony commander is requesting formal battle rights for the Vega system," reported Lieutenant Ross from the communications station. His voice carried the calm professionalism that came from years of civilized warfare. There was no panic, no fear. This was just another day in the endless cycle of galactic conflict. Lane nodded slowly. The Vega system had been disputed territory for decades. Rich in rare minerals and positioned along major trade routes, it was valuable enough to fight for, but not valuable enough to die for. The Altarian Republic and the Hegemony Empire had clashed over it many times, each battle following the same ancient patterns. "Accept their challenge," Lane commanded. "Standard engagement rules. 6-hour time limit with medical breaks every 2 hours. No targeting of civilian areas or life support systems. May the best fleet win." The bridge crew began their preparations with practiced efficiency. Weapon systems came online with gentle hums rather than aggressive roars. Shield generators activated with soft blue glows that were both beautiful and functional. Even the positioning of the ships followed artistic principles, formations that were pleasing to the eye while still being tactically sound. Commander West, the tactical officer, highlighted key positions on the display. "Sir, they're using formation. Delta 7, classic hegemony approach. They'll try to draw us into the asteroid field and use their superior maneuverability to advantage." "Counter with formation Gamma 3, Lane replied. "We'll maintain distance and use our superior firepower to wear them down, standard procedure." This was the beauty of galactic warfare. Every species had developed their own tactical doctrines over millennia of conflict, but all were bound by the same fundamental principles. Wars were fought to achieve political objectives, not to destroy civilizations. Defeated enemies were expected to surrender gracefully and honor their losses. Victorious forces were expected to show mercy and restraint. The Galactic Warfare Council had spent centuries developing these rules after the Great Devastation nearly destroyed several star systems. Never again would entire populations be wiped out over territorial disputes. Never again would weapons of mass destruction turn habitable worlds into lifeless rocks. War would be controlled, limited, survivable. "Sir, enemy fleet is signaling." "Ready status," reported the communications officer. "They're requesting confirmation of battle parameters." Lane activated the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Lane. Today we fight for the honor of the Altarian Republic and the security of our trade routes. Remember our traditions. Fight with courage but show mercy to the defeated. May our ancestors guide us to victory." Similar speeches were being given aboard the hegemony vessels. Their commander, Admiral Voss, was a respected opponent who had faced Lane in battle 17 times over the past decade. They had developed a grudging respect for each other's tactical skills. In 3 days, regardless of who won, they would share drinks and discuss the battle's finer points. The engagement began with the traditional exchange of long-range fire. Bright beams of energy lanced through space, striking shields and armor with spectacular displays of light. Damage was carefully monitored by neutral observers from the Galactic Warfare Council. Ensuring that neither side crossed the line into excessive violence, Lieutenant Ross suddenly looked up from his station with confusion. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Galactic Command. They're ordering immediate withdrawal from the Vega system." "Withdrawal?" Lane frowned, in the middle of a formal engagement. "That's unprecedented." The main screen flickered to life, showing the Grim face of Grand Admiral Stone from the Galactic Defense Command. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by obvious stress and concern. Admiral Lane, you are ordered to cease all combat operations immediately and withdraw to safe distance. We have received intelligence about an unknown vessel approaching your position. Unknown vessel? Commander West checked his sensors. Sir, I'm not reading any unidentified ships within 50 light-years of our position. Grand Admiral Stone's image wavered slightly. The vessel appears to be of human origin. We have no records of human military activity in your sector, and they have not responded to any diplomatic communications. Lane felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity was the newest member of the galactic community, admitted only 50 years ago after demonstrating basic space travel. Their technology was considered primitive by galactic standards. Their military was virtually non-existent. They had never participated in formal warfare and showed little interest in territorial expansion. Sir, surely a single human vessel poses no threat to our combined fleets, Lane said. We have over 70 ships of the line here. Grand Admiral Stone's expression grew darker. Admiral, I'm transmitting sensor data from the Meridian Outpost. This human vessel destroyed a hegemony patrol in the Outer Rim yesterday. There were no survivors, no formal challenge, no communication of any kind. The tactical display updated with new information. Lane studied the data with growing alarm. The human vessel's energy signature was unlike anything in their databases. More disturbing was the complete absence of any distress signals or surrender attempts from the destroyed patrol. Sir, Commander West said quietly, according to this data, the human vessel specifically targeted life support systems and crew. Quarters, that's a direct violation of the warfare accords. Perhaps they simply don't understand our protocols, Lane suggested, though doubt crept into his voice. They're still learning galactic customs and traditions. Grand Admiral Stone shook his head. Admiral, the human vessel has been designated as a hostile threat. All fleets are ordered to avoid contact until we can determine their capabilities and intentions. Lane looked around his bridge at officers who had served with him for years. They were experienced warriors, veterans of dozens of formal engagements. But something about this situation felt different. The humans were supposed to be peaceful newcomers to the galactic stage, not mysterious threats capable of destroying military patrols. Understood, sir. We'll begin immediate withdrawal. But what about the hegemony fleet? We're in the middle of a formal challenge. Admiral Voss has already been contacted. Both fleets will withdraw to neutral territory until this matter is resolved. As the transmission ended, Lane ordered his fleet to begin the complex maneuvers required for tactical withdrawal. The hegemony vessels across the void began their own retreat, their ceremonial lights dimming to respectful amber. The battle for the Vega system would have to wait, but somewhere in the depths of space, something else was approaching. Something that cared nothing for the rules of civilized warfare, for the careful traditions that had kept galactic conflicts limited and survivable, for the ancient agreements that separated war from wholesale slaughter. The galaxy was about to learn that not all species shared their enlightened approach to conflict. Some species still remembered what war really meant when survival was at stake. And humanity was about to remind the galaxy why their ancestors had created the warfare accords in the first place. The age of civilized warfare was about to end, though none of them knew it yet. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as the human vessel Retribution materialized from hyperspace without warning or ceremony. Unlike the grand entrances that marked the arrival of civilized fleets, this ship simply appeared like a shadow made solid, its black hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Commander Riley watched the tactical display from the bridge of the Retribution with cold satisfaction. The retreating alien fleets showed as clusters of contacts, their movements predictable and slow. These creatures had no idea what was coming for them. Sir, we're receiving multiple hails from both alien fleets, reported the communications officer. They're requesting identification and stating that this is neutral space under something called the Galactic Warfare Accords. Riley never looked away from the tactical display. Ignore them. What's the status of our primary target? The tactical officer highlighted several contacts on the screen. Hegemony supply convoy, sir. 3 cargo vessels with light escort heading for the mining colonies. They're maintaining standard peacetime formation with no combat readiness. Perfect. Signal the fleet to take attack positions. These aliens threatened our outer colonies. Time to show them the consequences. Behind the retribution, 5 more. Human vessels emerged from hyperspace. They were smaller than the massive alien warships, but built for a different purpose entirely. While alien ships were designed for the formal duels that passed for warfare in this galaxy, human vessels were built for killing. The human fleet had been hunting for months, striking at alien outposts and patrols throughout the Outer Rim. Each engagement had been the same, swift, brutal, and final. No prisoners, no survivors, no witnesses. Earth's new military doctrine was simple: eliminate threats before they could organize resistance. Sir, the Confederation fleet is moving. To intercept, reported the communications officer. They're broadcasting some kind of warning about violating warfare protocols. Riley finally turned from the display. Protocols don't apply to us. We never agreed to their rules. The alien fleets were forming defensive positions with the careful precision that marked their civilized approach to war. Their ships moved in. Elegant formations, their weapons powering up with measured restraint. They still believed this would be like their formal battles, controlled, limited, survivable. All ships, begin attack run, Riley commanded. Remember, we're not here to fight a war, we're here to end one. The human fleet accelerated to combat speed without warning, without the traditional periods of negotiation and positioning that alien warfare demanded. Their approach was direct and aggressive, designed to close distance before the enemy could react. On the Confederation flagship, Admiral Drake watched the human approach with growing alarm. They're not following any recognized tactical doctrine, he told his staff. Are they planning to ram us? Sir, their energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases, the sensor officer replied. They're using some kind of kinetic weapon system instead of standard energy weapons. Drake activated the General Fleet channel. Human vessels, this is Admiral Drake of the Confederation Defense Fleet. You are entering disputed territory during a formal engagement. State your intentions and prepare for standard challenge protocols. The response came immediately, broadcast on all frequencies with brutal clarity. This is Commander Riley of the Human Strike Fleet. We are here to eliminate threats to human interests. Any vessel that interferes will be destroyed. The bridge fell silent. In thousands of years of galactic warfare, no commander had ever made such a direct threat. Military communications were carefully structured to leave room for negotiation. For face-saving retreats, for the diplomatic solutions that kept conflicts from escalating beyond control. Sir, they're not requesting battle rights, the communications officer said in shock. They're not following any of the established protocols at all. Drake felt cold certainty settle in his stomach. All ships prepare for emergency combat. These humans don't understand the rules of civilized warfare. The human fleet opened fire without formal declaration. Without warning, without giving the alien vessels time to raise shields or respond. Their weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had seen, solid projectiles that punched through energy shields and armor with devastating effect. The Confederation destroyer, Morning Star, was the first to die. Its captain had been preparing to broadcast surrender terms when human projectiles tore through the hull, venting atmosphere and crew into space. There was no graceful defeat, no opportunity for evacuation, no mercy for the defeated. They're targeting life support directly, the tactical officer reported, his voice filled with horror. They're not trying to disable our ships. They're trying to kill everyone on board. Drake's training warred with the evidence before his eyes. This was not warfare as the galaxy understood it. This was something from the Dark Ages, something that belonged to the barbaric past that civilized species had left behind. Emergency withdrawal, Drake ordered. All ships, full retreat to the perimeter. But the human vessels were faster than their databases indicated. They pursued the retreating Confederation fleet with mechanical precision, their weapons continuing to target critical systems and crew areas. The elegant formations that had served galactic warfare for millennia dissolved under the relentless assault. The hegemony fleet attempted to assist their traditional enemies, but they faced the same brutal reality. Human weapons carved through, their shields like paper, their hulls like cloth. Ships that had survived dozens of formal battles were reduced to floating debris in minutes, within an hour. Both alien fleets had been effectively neutralized. 18 ships destroyed, 26 disabled beyond repair, and the survivors in full retreat. The convoy that had started this engagement was completely UNDEFENDED. Riley watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. Signal Earth Command. The Vega system is clear, all potential threats eliminated. Sir, the tactical officer said hesitantly, the convoy is signaling surrender. They're offering to abandon their cargo and withdraw to neutral space. Riley's response was immediate and final: destroy them. We can't allow survivors to report our capabilities to their governments. The human fleet moved toward the defenseless convoy with the same mechanical precision they had shown throughout the engagement. The cargo vessels had no weapons, no shields, no hope of escape. Their crews transmitted desperate pleas for mercy, offering complete surrender and valuable intelligence. The humans destroyed them. Anyway, Riley stood watching the aftermath on his tactical display. Debris fields where proud ships had been. Emergency beacons that would receive no response. The silence of space where voices had been. This was what war looked like when survival was at stake. Communications, send a message to all alien governments on standard diplomatic channels, Riley ordered. Tell them that humanity claims the Vega system and all surrounding territory. Any vessel that enters human space will be destroyed without warning. The communications officer hesitated. Sir, that's not how diplomatic contact is supposed to work. There are protocols for territorial claims. Riley's smile was cold. Their protocols failed to protect them. Our protocols don't fail. Across the galaxy, emergency signals raced toward the major alien capitals. The message was simple but terrifying. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as students of civilization, but as practitioners of something far more ancient and brutal. The aliens had spent millennia developing rules to make war survivable. They had created elaborate protocols to prevent conflicts from escalating beyond control. They had built a civilization based on the belief that intelligent species could resolve their differences without resorting to total destruction. Humanity had just proven them wrong. The Retribution and her escort vessels disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind only wreckage and the terrible knowledge that the galaxy's understanding of warfare had just become obsolete. Somewhere in the depths of space, more human fleets were moving toward their targets, carrying the same brutal efficiency that had turned the Vega system into a graveyard. The age of civilized warfare was ending, though most of the galaxy didn't know it yet. The age of total war was beginning, and humanity intended to be its only survivors. The Great Council chamber of Galactic Station buzzed with tension as representatives from dozens of species gathered for the most important meeting in galactic history. Ancient enemies sat beside each other, their traditional disputes forgotten. In the face of a threat that none of them fully understood, Ambassador Wells of the Altarian Republic stood at the central podium, her usually composed demeanor cracked by the reports she had been receiving. Fellow delegates, we face a crisis that threatens the very foundation of galactic civilization. The human species has committed acts of warfare that violate every principle we hold sacred. The massive holographic display showed the aftermath of human attacks across the outer rim. Debris fields marked the locations where proud fleets had been reduced to twisted metal and frozen corpses. The images were stark and brutal, entirely foreign to the galactic understanding of military conflict. Delegate Core of the Hegemony Empire rose from his seat, his reptilian features twisted with rage. 17 of our vessels destroyed without warning, without challenge, without mercy. This is not warfare. This is systematic butchery designed to terrorize rather than achieve political objectives. A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the chamber. The hegemony and Confederation had been enemies for centuries, but they had always maintained civilized standards of combat. To hear a hegemony delegate defending Confederation casualties was unprecedented. The humans claim self-defense, Ambassador. Wells continued, but their actions suggest something far more dangerous. They are not seeking to join our community of civilized worlds. They are attempting to destroy it. The representative from the Peaceful Worlds Alliance, a tall, graceful being known as Speaker Blue, raised a delicate hand. Perhaps we are misunderstanding their intentions. Humanity is young, inexperienced in galactic affairs. They may simply need guidance and proper military conduct. Guidance? Delegate Corps' voice was sharp with disbelief. They deliberately targeted life support systems and crew quarters. They fired upon defenseless cargo vessels. They ignored all surrender attempts. This is not inexperience. This is calculated cruelty. Admiral Gray materialized as a hologram in the center of the chamber. Her uniform was pristine, but her expression was haunted by what she had witnessed. Honored delegates, I have analyzed the human military capabilities. Their technology is not superior to ours, but their tactics are completely outside our understanding of warfare. The chamber fell silent as the implications began to sink in. For thousands of years, galactic warfare had been a carefully controlled dance of honor and restraint. Ships might be lost, but crews would survive. Battles would be fought, but civilizations would endure. The humans had introduced something that the galaxy had forgotten, the concept of total war. What do we know about their military strength? Ambassador Wells asked. Admiral Gray gestured and new data appeared on the display. Intelligence suggests they have at least 40 vessels of the class we encountered. Their weapons are kinetic rather than energy-based, which makes them surprisingly effective against our defensive systems. More importantly, they appear to have no ethical limitations on their rules of engagement. No limitations? Speaker Blue's voice carried horrified disbelief. But surely they must have some moral code governing military conduct. All civilized species develop constraints on the use of force. Admiral Gray's expression grew grim. The humans appear to operate under what they call total war doctrine. Any target that could potentially threaten human interests is considered legitimate for destruction. They make no distinction between military and civilian targets, between combatants and non-combatants. The representative from the Trading Guild, a crystalline being that communicated through musical tones, produced a sound of deep concern. This threatens the foundation of galactic commerce. If no vessel is safe from unprovoked attack, if no surrender is honored, then the trade networks that connect our civilizations become meaningless. Delegate Corps stood again, his claws scraping against the metal of his chair. The hegemony calls for immediate military action. We must unite our fleets and eliminate this human threat before they can spread their barbaric approach to warfare throughout the galaxy and become like them. Speaker Blue's voice was soft but carried clearly through the chamber. If we abandon our principles to fight them, have we not already been defeated? Ambassador Wells raised her hand for silence. The question before the U.S. is not whether to respond, but how to respond while maintaining the principles that separate us from chaos. The debate continued for hours, but slowly a consensus emerged. The major powers would assemble the largest fleet in galactic history, drawn from every member world. They would demonstrate that civilized warfare could still triumph over barbarism through superior numbers and coordination. But even as they planned their response, new reports arrived of human attacks spreading deeper into civilized space. The outer rim colonies were burning, and the flames were moving toward the core worlds. The humans were not simply waging war, they were redefining what war meant. The combined fleet will number over 400 vessels, Admiral Gray announced. Representatives from 73 species, united in purpose. We will offer the humans one final chance for diplomatic resolution, and if they refuse, we will demonstrate the power of civilized unity. The delegates approved the plan with overwhelming support. Messages were sent to every capital, every fleet command, every military academy in the galaxy. The greatest armada in galactic history would gather to face the human threat. As the session concluded, Ambassador Wells transmitted humanity's final diplomatic offer through the few remaining communication channels. It was carefully worded, offering generous terms for peace and integration into the galactic community. The response arrived within hours, transmitted on military frequencies with brutal clarity. Humanity recognizes no authority but its own. Any interference with human expansion will be met with total retaliation. You have been warned. The galaxy had spent thousands of years learning to fight with honor and restraint. Now they would have to learn to fight for survival against an enemy that recognized no rules except victory. Admiral Gray began the massive task of coordinating the Allied fleet. Ships from across the galaxy converged on the rally point, their crews united by the shared understanding that they faced something beyond their experience. The elegant vessels of the Confederation, the powerful dreadnoughts of the hegemony, the swift cruisers of the Trading Guild, all would stand together against the human threat. But deep in the classified files of military intelligence, a disturbing pattern was emerging. Every human attack had been precisely planned, perfectly executed, and completely without mercy. The humans were not simply random raiders or desperate colonists. They were operating under a coherent military doctrine that treated warfare as a tool for permanent political change. The greatest fleet in galactic history, prepared to face an enemy that had already redefined the rules of engagement. They would soon learn that superior numbers and traditional tactics were useless against an opponent who fought without limits, without mercy, and without the civilized constraints that had governed galactic warfare for millennia. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when an irresistible force met an immovable object. But in this case, the humans were both the force and the object. They would either achieve total victory or accept total destruction. There would be no middle ground, no negotiated settlement, no honorable defeat. The age of civilized warfare was ending, and the galaxy was about to learn what their ancestors had tried so hard to forget. The war room deep beneath Earth's surface hummed with quiet activity as General Hayes reviewed the tactical displays showing the galaxy's response to humanity's expansion. Hundreds of alien vessels were converging on the outer rim systems, their formations precise and their intentions clear. They're assembling the largest fleet in recorded galactic history, reported Colonel Park, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they faced. 412 vessels from 73 different species, all converging on the Kepler Junction. Hayes nodded calmly as she studied the enemy formations. This was exactly what Earth's Strategic Command had predicted would happen. The aliens were responding to humanity's actions with their traditional approach, overwhelming force applied according to their ancient rules of engagement. And they're still broadcasting formal challenges and negotiation requests? Hayes asked. Yes, ma'am. They seem to believe this is going to be like their ceremonial wars. They're even offering terms for human withdrawal and integration into their galactic community. Hayes smiled without humor. She had studied the alien military doctrines for decades, analyzing their cultural limitations and their fundamental inability to understand what humanity had become. These creatures fought wars like elaborate games, with rules designed to ensure that the losers could survive to fight another day. Humanity had learned different lessons from its bloody history. War was not a game to be played, but a tool to be used when survival was at stake. And when survival was threatened, there could be no rules except victory. Activate Operation Scythe, Hayes ordered. Show them what real warfare looks like. Across the galaxy, human assets that had been positioned over months of careful preparation began to move. Not just the visible fleets that had been engaging alien patrols, but the hidden weapons platforms, the disguised cargo vessels, the automated systems that had been waiting in the darkness for this moment. The aliens had been so focused on the 50 human ships they could detect that they had missed the 500 they couldn't. Commander Blake received the activation signal aboard the destroyer Vengeance as his small fleet faced the massive alien armada. The odds were roughly 8-1, and his crew showed the calm professionalism that came from absolute confidence in their doctrine and training. "All ships, prepare for Phase 1, Blake broadcast to his fleet. "Remember, we're not here to win a battle, we're here to end the war." The alien fleet approached with ceremonial precision, their formations perfect, their communications filled with formal declarations and ritualized challenges. They had learned nothing from humanity's previous demonstrations. Still believing that superior numbers and traditional tactics would prevail, Admiral Stone commanded the Allied fleet from the massive battleship Unity, a vessel that represented the pinnacle of galactic military engineering. She had assembled the finest officers from dozens of species, united by their shared determination to stop the human threat. "Signal the human fleet," Stone ordered. "Offer them one final opportunity for honorable surrender." The response came immediately, broadcast on all frequencies with the flat certainty that had marked every human communication. "This is Commander Blake. We do not surrender. We do not negotiate. We do not retreat. Come and take us." Admiral Stone felt a chill at the absolute conviction in the human's voice. These were not the words of a military commander seeking advantage in negotiations. These were the words of someone who had already accepted death as preferable to defeat. "All ships, prepare for engagement," Stone commanded. "Follow standard protocols. Disable their engines and weapons first. We need prisoners to understand their technology and intentions." The human fleet accelerated directly toward the alien armada, their smaller vessels dwarfed by the massive alien dreadnoughts. But as they closed distance, something unexpected began to happen. The seemingly empty space around the battlefield started revealing hidden threats. Automated weapons platforms emerged from concealment among the asteroids, their targeting systems locking onto alien vessels. Cargo ships that had been drifting apparently disabled suddenly powered up, revealing sophisticated weapon systems. The asteroids themselves began to move, exposing themselves as camouflaged missile platforms. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system," reported the sensor officer aboard Unity. "There are human assets everywhere. The entire battlefield is a trap." Admiral Stone stared at the tactical display in shock. The humans had not brought a fleet to fight a battle. They had turned the entire star system into a weapon. Every piece of debris, every seemingly innocent object, every drifting hulk was revealing itself as a component in a vast killing machine. "How many vessels are we actually facing?" Stone asked. "Unknown, Admiral. The signatures are too dispersed and too varied. It could be 100 ships or 1,000 individual weapon platforms." The human attack began without warning, without declaration, without any of the ritualized elements that marked civilized warfare. Missiles launched from concealed positions, striking alien vessels that had no idea they were under attack. The human fleet's apparent weakness had been a deception. They had brought an entire battle group. Hidden throughout the system, the alien fleet's careful formations dissolved under the coordinated assault. Ships designed to fight honorable engagements found themselves attacked from every direction. Their defensive systems, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of incoming fire. But the humans were not simply trying to win the battle. They were trying to send a message to every government in the galaxy. Every alien vessel that was disabled faced the same fate, complete destruction of all life support systems, ensuring no survivors could report back to their commanders. "Admiral, the hegemony sector is requesting permission to withdraw," reported the communications officer. "They're taking catastrophic losses." Stone watched her carefully assembled fleet being systematically destroyed, not by superior technology or numbers, but by a completely different understanding of what warfare meant. The humans were not trying to defeat the alien fleet. They were trying to eliminate it entirely. "All ships, emergency withdrawal," Stone ordered. "Full retreat to the outer perimeter." But the human weapon platforms had been positioned to prevent exactly that escape. As the alien fleet attempted to withdraw, they discovered their retreat routes blocked by minefields, their hyperspace jump points targeted by long-range missiles. The battle that was supposed to demonstrate the superiority of civilized warfare became a massacre. Of the 400 vessels that had entered the system, fewer than 60 escaped. The rest were destroyed, their crews eliminated, their wreckage left as a monument to the futility of fighting humans with conventional tactics. General Hayes watched the battle's conclusion from Earth's command center, her expression satisfied but not surprised. The galaxy's greatest military force had been defeated not by superior weapons or numbers, but by superior understanding of what war really meant. Signal all human fleets, Hayes ordered. Begin Phase 2. The galaxy is now open for colonization. The message that went out to every alien government was simple and final. Submit to human authority or face complete extermination. The age of limited warfare was over. The age of total war had begun, and humanity intended to be its only practitioners across the galaxy. Alien leaders who had never known defeat began to understand that their civilization's greatest strength, its commitment to civilized warfare, had become its greatest weakness. They had created rules to make war survivable, but humanity had proven that some wars were not meant to be survived. The galaxy would never be the same. The careful balance of power that had maintained peace for millennia was broken. In its place stood a simple truth: humanity would accept nothing less than absolute victory, and they had the will to achieve it regardless of cost. The stars themselves seemed to dim as the reality of total war spread across civilized space. The age of honor was ending. The age of survival had begun. The morning briefing in the former Galactic Council chambers proceeded with the efficient precision that had replaced the elaborate ceremonies of the old order. Director Walsh reviewed the daily reports from across what was now called the Human Administrative Zone, a territory that encompassed most of the known galaxy. Compliance rates are holding steady at 98% across all sectors, reported Assistant Director Chun, her voice carrying the satisfaction of a job well done. The remaining resistance cells are isolated and pose no significant threat to colonial operations. Walsh nodded as she scanned the data on her tablet. The transition from galactic democracy to human administration had been surprisingly smooth once the alien populations understood that resistance was not simply futile, but genuinely impossible. The destruction of their greatest fleet had shattered something fundamental in the alien psyche. What about the core worlds? Walsh asked. Any problems with the integration process? The former Confederation capital has been fully converted to human administrative standards. The hegemony homeworlds surrendered without resistance once they understood our terms. The Peaceful Worlds Alliance attempted to organize humanitarian protests, but those were quickly discouraged. Walsh looked up from her tablet. Discouraged how? Complete sterilization of their 3 most populous colonies, ma'am. The message was clear and effective. There have been no further organized resistance attempts. The director walked to the great window that overlooked the station's central hub. Below, human administrators worked efficiently alongside alien clerks who had adapted to the new reality. The elaborate governmental structures that had once housed dozens of independent species now served a single purpose: efficient management of human interests. The beauty of their old system, Walsh mused, was that it was designed to prevent exactly what we accomplished. They created rules of engagement that made total war impossible, diplomatic protocols that ensured conflicts remained limited and survivable. They built a civilization that could not defend itself against anyone willing to ignore their rules. A communication alert interrupted her observations. Director, priority transmission from Earth Central Command. President Johnson's image materialized. In the chamber, his expression showing the quiet satisfaction of a leader whose long-term strategy had succeeded beyond all expectations. Director Walsh, congratulations on completing the pacification phase ahead of schedule. The galaxy is now secure for human expansion. Thank you, Mr. President. The alien species have proven remarkably adaptable once they understood the finality of our position. Their existing administrative structures have been integrated into our colonial system with minimal disruption. Excellent. What about long-term security? Are we confident that no alien population can mount effective resistance? Walsh smiled. Completely confident, sir. The aliens spent thousands of years developing warfare designed to be survivable. They created elaborate protocols that ensured defeated enemies could rebuild and potentially challenge victors again. They never learned to fight wars meant to produce permanent results. And humanity learned that lesson from its own history? Humanity understood that some conflicts can only be resolved through the complete elimination of the enemy's ability. To resist, the aliens never developed that capability because their rules of engagement made it impossible. They literally could not conceive of warfare designed to produce total victory. President Johnson nodded slowly. The expansion fleets are ready to begin systematic colonization of the remaining uninhabited systems. We estimate complete galactic control within 30 years. What about the surviving alien populations, sir? They will be integrated into human society as productive citizens. Our analysis indicates that most alien species are actually better suited to specialized roles within our administrative structure than to independent governance. The Altarians excel at engineering, the hegemony species are skilled at resource extraction, and the former peaceful world's populations have proven excellent at cultural management. Walsh considered this development. The galaxy's diverse species had indeed found their places within humanity's new order, without the burden of military defense or political independence. They were free to focus on their natural abilities and contribute to human civilization. Sir, there is one administrative matter. Some alien groups have requested permission to maintain cultural monuments and historical records related to their former governments. President Johnson's expression hardened. Denied, the old order failed, because it was based on the false premise that warfare could be limited and civilized. We cannot allow the survival of ideas that might inspire future resistance movements. Understood, sir. I'll issue the appropriate directives to all sector administrators. As the transmission ended, Walsh returned to her administrative duties. The galaxy stretched before humanity, vast and resource-rich, no longer protected by the elaborate systems that had once kept it divided and vulnerable. The aliens had created a beautiful, sophisticated civilization that valued honor, diplomacy, and restraint in all things. They had also created a civilization that was completely defenseless against anyone who did not share those values. Assistant Director Chun approached with the final reports of the day. Director, the last of the alien military academies has been permanently closed. All records of their tactical doctrines and strategic philosophies have been destroyed as ordered. Good. Ensure that no trace of their military traditions survives in any form. Future generations should never learn that warfare was once considered something that could be limited or controlled. Walsh looked out at the stars, where human patrol vessels now maintained order in what had once been the territory of dozens of independent civilizations. The galaxy had known war for thousands of years, but it had never known war as humanity practiced it. The transformation had been remarkably complete. Where once there had been competing empires and independent worlds, now there was only the human administrative zone. Where once there had been elaborate diplomatic protocols and formal military challenges, now there was only efficient compliance with human directives. The aliens had learned their final lesson about the nature of power. The species that refuses to use maximum force will always be defeated by the species that embraces it. The civilization that fights wars to be survived will always lose to the civilization that fights wars to be won. Director, Chun said quietly, the morning reports show that some of the outer colonies are ahead of schedule on resource extraction. The former hegemony mining worlds are producing at twice their previous capacity under human management. Of course they are, Walsh replied. They no longer waste resources on military expenses, territorial disputes, or the elaborate governmental structures needed to maintain their precious independence. Every effort can now be focused on productive activity. The irony was not lost on her. The aliens had achieved the peaceful, prosperous civilization they had always claimed to want, but only by surrendering the independence that had made peace impossible. Under human rule, there were no more wars between alien species, no more territorial disputes, no more resources wasted on competitive military buildups. What about the cultural integration programs? Walsh asked, proceeding smoothly. The younger alien generations are adapting particularly well to human educational standards. Within 2 generations, we estimate that most species will be fully integrated into human civilization with only minimal cultural distinctiveness remaining. Walsh nodded with satisfaction. This had always been the long-term goal, not the destruction of alien species, but their complete absorption into human society. The galaxy would remain diverse in terms of biological capabilities, but unified in terms of culture, values, and political structure. The old galactic civilization had been based on the fantasy that different species with different values could coexist as equals. History had proven that such arrangements were inherently unstable, always vulnerable to the first group willing to pursue total victory rather than negotiated settlements. Any word from the deep space exploration fleets? Walsh inquired. The Scouts have identified several galaxy clusters within range of our expansion capabilities. Initial surveys suggest vast resources and no advanced civilizations. The universe appears to be open for human colonization. Walsh smiled at the scope of what humanity had achieved. In less than a century, they had gone from a single world to masters of an entire galaxy. The key had been understanding that the universe was not governed by the civilized rules that the aliens had created for themselves. Schedule a meeting with the sector administrators for next week. We need to begin planning the next phase of expansion. If there are other galaxies with alien civilizations, they need to understand our position before they make the same mistakes our former neighbors made. As the day's work concluded, Walsh took one final look at the tactical displays that showed human control extending across the galaxy. Green indicators marked human colonies, blue showed integrated alien populations, and the few remaining red zones indicated areas still being pacified. Soon there would be only green and blue. The age of resistance was ending as the final alien holdouts recognized the futility of opposing human expansion. They had learned what every previous opponent had learned: humanity did not fight wars to achieve temporary advantage, but to create permanent solutions. The galaxy was finally at peace, the peace that came from unity of purpose and clarity of authority. There would be no more wars between species because there was only one species in charge. There would be no more territorial disputes because all territory belonged to humanity. There would be no more conflicts over resources because all resources served human interests. The aliens had spent millennia trying to create a lasting peace through rules and treaties and diplomatic protocols. Humanity had achieved it in decades through the simple expedient of removing the possibility of resistance. The galaxy was safe at last, not because war had been eliminated, but because war had been perfected. The humans had not just redefined warfare, they had completed it, creating a victory so total and permanent that no future conflict was possible. In the depths of space, automated sensors continued their vigilant watch, ensuring that no external threat could ever challenge the new order. The galaxy had learned its final lesson about the nature of power, and humanity stood ready to teach that lesson to whatever other civilizations they might encounter among the stars. The age of limited war was over. The age of permanent peace had begun, enforced by the species that understood that true peace could only come through absolute victory.